email marketing message to hundreds of ARPANET users. He was promoting a new product for his company, the Digital Equipment Corporation, and he claimed that this one email earned him $13 million in sales. The resulting outcry was sufficient to dissuade any other users from sending a spam email for many years. However, this changed in the 1990s. Millions of individuals discovered the internet, and they signed up for inexpensive personal accounts. When that happened, and the size of the connectivity of the network exploded, advertisers realized that there was a very large and willing audience that they could now reach very cheaply through this new communications channel. So the helpful nature of open relays was one of the first victims of the spam influx from these marketers. In the young commercial internet, high-speed connections were prohibitively expensive for individuals, and generally only businesses had them. So spammers quickly learned that it was very easy to send a small number of messages with recipient lists thousands and thousands of addresses long. They would send that to a corporate server, which would then happily relay the message to all of their targets. Now, the administrators of these corporate email servers noticed the sudden spikes from their metered service bills and, of course, an uptick in complaints from users, and they realized that they could no longer help their peers altruistically without incurring some significant monetary cost and ill will from other users of the network. So SMTP, which was designed with reliability as a feature, it now found itself needing to be redesigned to purposefully discard certain messages. This was a foreign concept, and no one was quite sure how to proceed. The first step was to close these open relays. And email server administrators argued loudly and at great length about whether this was a necessary move or even a good idea. In the end, though, there was consensus that the trusting nature of the old internet was gone, and it was harmful to make that assumption in this new setting. Now, the Internet Mail Consortium reported in 1998 that 55% of email servers were open relay servers. By the year 2002, that was down to 1%. Some email users took this idea a step further, and they decided not only would they close their systems as relays, but they would no longer accept incoming messages from other servers that were acting as open relays. They eventually began to share these lists of open relays with their peers by adding specifically formatted entries into their domain name servers and allowing for anyone to query the servers for that data. This was the beginning of the first DNS black hole lists, and they were highly controversial. For example, administrators debated whether it was acceptable to actively test other servers to see if they were open relays. And then they discussed what procedures a system administrator should have to follow to remove their server from these blacklists after they disabled their open relay. One of the earliest blacklists was the Mail Abuse Prevention System, or MAPS. MAPS is actually spam spelled backwards. Now, being certain that there was an absolute right to publish anti-spam blacklists, MAPS even published this How to Sue Us page because they were inviting spammers to sue them in order to create case law around this issue. In 2000, MAPS was a defendant in no fewer than 3 different lawsuits from marketing companies. In 2001, they actually started requiring a paid subscription in order to access their blacklist, making it, one step further more expensive for people to be a part of this network. Now, their stated purpose was to educate users to relay mail through a quote-unquote acknowledged internet service provider, rather than running their own email servers. Because doing this would bring various advantages. ISPs can, in general, better afford to monitor the traffic going through their systems and help avoid viruses and hijackers and other threats. And furthermore, it paved the way for more effectively enforcing new policies like SPF, the Sender Policy Framework, which relied upon end-user SMTP authentication to block email address abuse. But This can also prevent people from using and publishing their own proper SPF policies. So the first victim of collateral damage from this was actually the mail servers who were blocked through no fault of their own. This often happened when overzealous blacklist administrators would add entire blocks of IP addresses to their lists, rather than going through and getting only the specific IP addresses that were abusing the spam. So a group of operators argued that these lists should err on that side of caution in order to prevent such problems, but others believed that they should actually put extra pressure to open relay administrators to stop doing that. In the early 2000s, the United States started to set standards for regulating commercial email with the CAN-SPAM Act. This was signed into law by President George W. Bush 32 years after SMTP was first defined. Some critics said the law didn't go far enough because while it makes it a misdemeanor to spoof the from address field,